Hello, welcome back to Shock's Talks. I'm Shakti, and today I'm going to give you a very quick update on part 2 of the Immaculate Constellation story. This is coming out of the Weaponized podcast by Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp, and the witness or whistleblower who's coming forward now is Matthew Brown. I covered this in a couple episodes ago, Immaculate Constellation with Matthew Brown. And so go to that episode and I'll post it at the end of this for all the details of this guy's background and what he's telling us. Today I'm just going to cover a couple points from what he talked about in part 2, and then I'm going to talk about a couple other things. I'm getting a cold, so I can't talk for too long. So anyway, he talks about images of orbs transiting from coastal facilities to the ocean. He talks about a triangle, which he talked about one in part 1. This is a second triangular craft that he saw in this slide deck that he discovered by accident. Once he gets through the details of that deck, which includes, pictures from videos. So there's a lot more suggested in terms of the data that has been collected than what he saw in the deck. The deck is just a few examples of things that are going on, kind of like a briefing. And then he talks about how difficult his path was from there. And it sounds like it really took years. It starts with him telling his boss telling him to just delete it. He goes to upper leadership. They laugh at him and they kind of tell him not, just don't worry about it. And then it's immediately deleted off the server after that, even though he's looked at it like 80 times before because he's fascinated. During this time, Congress is asking for witnesses and whistleblowers to come forward. There was all that stuff going on with the congressional hearings and the amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act. And this is right before Grush comes out in the open, but there's a lot of people talking about, oh my gosh, this thing is going on. Who should we tell? We need to get this out to the right people. And Congress is saying, come on, tell us. We want to know. But at the same time, amendments to these big bills are getting shot down and edited down and watered down to be completely useless. Whistleblower protection is not looking like a real thing. And then when he does eventually go to the Congress, he has a really hard time. There's no clear process. There's no easy pathway. Everything feels scary. He can't even talk directly to the people he wants to talk to, but some officer sort of takes his information and also reassures him that this is good. We do need to know this stuff. But I guess he was expecting a little bit more. He felt like, whoa, this is a really, really big deal. But I guess they already know. And they kind of did. They were getting this from multiple sources at that time. Then Grush comes on the scene, and then they really have everything they want, or so he thinks. I think we're going to find out more in part 3. But he also talks about just how he starts his own multi-year internal investigation, an amateur all-source analysis. So he's trying to learn everything that he can. This is all before Grush testifies in front of Congress. And so this is going on for years and years. The process is not easy. The meetings that he have in the skiff with the officer who's going to relay the information to Congress members. There's no follow-up meetings. There's no lawyers there. He never signs any paperwork, but he does sign the little ledger that he was there on this particular day. And he's changing jobs throughout this time. Nothing really bad has happened to him. He hasn't been threatened. He assumes that he's being observed, by the higher ups. And that's about it for this part. I think it's kind of building to some more that we'll find out in part 3, or that's what I'm imagining. He talks about this process of basically submitting the report to Dopser, and I think he's talking about his Immaculate Constellation report that eventually did get submitted to Congress, and there are no redactions requested. He gets the message that you may proceed, but I have to double check that If that is, it sounds like that was the whole report. So that's what got submitted for basically like, are you allowed to publish this? And that's about it for part 2. He drops a really good quote at the end that they use for kind of like their little teaser to the next episode, but I'm going to repeat it because I think it was interesting. And most of what I find intriguing about this is not the information that's coming out of it, because it's nothing very new. Like, we know this is going on. It's more evidence to support people's theories that the legacy program exists, but it's very obvious that it does. So it's nothing new in that sense, but what's interesting to me is like, he seems like he knows more than he's even saying in this interview, and he has like a perspective on this global coordinated group that exists outside of all governments, that is in charge of the world, it sounds like. And we've been hearing about this for a long time as well. It's overwhelming to think about, honestly, but these people have the money and the power, and they are hoarding the information, the science, the technological advances, and what many people who study ufology have been asserting over the years is this idea that in order for these powerful elite controllers of reality to move into the next level of releasing tech, they have to get us all onboarded to this next level of understanding. So they're probably never going to share everything they know, obviously. They're not going to give us the whole truth. That's not about to happen. But what they will do is they will give us just enough to make room for them to do their next move. And that's the time we're in right now. We're in this moment of quote unquote disclosure, but it's not a real disclosure. This is all happening because somebody else wants it to happen. So we still have to keep investigating outside of this narrative to find out more. But we are being validated in some ways, because some of what is being conveyed through this disclosure movement is accurate to the research that has been done by independent journalists and researchers and scientists and abductees and contactees throughout the years. So it's a weird moment, but it's kind of exciting. And he ends his interview with this quote: "We live in a dream, a carefully constructed reality. We make use of a science that is tightly controlled and suppressed and distorted." He also says something about how the reason they are here for us, as in the aliens, especially sentient life, life is a precious thing, especially sentient life. And to some, it might be a resource. What does that mean? Life, our life is a resource to some aliens? How? Why? Like, oh, that just makes my mind go wild. And I also found out recently from watching this new YouTube channel, Psicoactivo. He does UAP coverage in English and Spanish, and he had posted something about Whitley Strieber, basically talking about the same thing that I was concerned about with Jake Barber. I'm like, everybody's so excited about Jake Barber being like overwhelmed by this gorgeous connection to NHI and, you know, this goddessly energy or whatever, and he's so inspired and feels so safe and protected. And I'm like, alarm bells going off, red flag, because to me that is potentially a manipulation tactic by whatever it is that's controlling this stuff, because they're testing human allegiance and how easy we are to manipulate in a way, and what kinds of things influence us. And there's a lot of research that's been going on for a long time about really weird alleged alien experiences with humans that are not just genetic experimentation, but gets into the psychology of humans and even into the love aspect of our relationships with one another. So I saw that as like, come on, like, haven't you guys read all the literature? Like, I haven't even, and I'm skeptical of this. And so is Whitley Strieber. So I felt really validated because Whitley Strieber is, he's a contactee or an abductee who's been having a lifelong relationship, a many years long relationship with what he calls the visitors. And he has a very unique perspective on all of this, but it's also very well informed by his own direct experience. And he said Jake should watch out because what happened to him was like a weapon. It's like a psychological weapon, and it's not something to just take lightly. So that was Whitley's perspective, which is interesting. I think we're not hearing very many people talk about that possible side of it. So I felt like, okay, somebody is, some people are, and I bet more people will be talking about it eventually. And I haven't heard anything from Jake Barber in a while. What's going on with Skywatcher? We haven't seen any more videos. Maybe they're just busy working. Maybe they're editing their footage. I would love to know what's going to happen with that effort. If you don't remember, Skywatcher it was a private company. Somebody recently told me that they're now government contractors. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but basically they presented themselves as a private company coming forward to do rigorous scientific research on UAP, and their method is to use psionic assets or neural meditators, which are psychic humans, to summon and interact with the UAP on this range out in the desert where they can get radar data and sensor data and capture images of these 9 different classifications that they've identified so far in their taxonomy of what these things are. So in the first 3 days of their work, they had, according to them, 100% accuracy rate of being able to call things onto the range. And they have stated that they will be sharing all of their data with other scientists for the proper kind of peer review that is required to make this legitimate. I don't know what's going on here. All of this could be some kind of unveiling of some layer of the truth in order for these greater powers that be to release the next wave of tech that they want to release into the world. Or it could be legit whistleblowers doing their thing. It's hard to say. Either way, I think it's important, like I said before, for us to continue looking at all of the data. So there's a ton out there, not just what's being released by these major mainstream media outlets, not just what has been published on government websites like Arrow and ATIP, but actually tons of experiencer stories, tons of firsthand trained witnesses from Navy and Air Force, and there are accounts of mass sightings from all around the world. So many good books that have been published. Right now, I'm reading Communion by Whitley Strieber. Finally, it's a classic, and I just am finally getting into it, and I'm loving it. His writing style is great because he's a writer. I'm learning so much more about him. I kind of thought I knew his whole story because I've been following him for years and listening to his podcast, but I'm learning a lot more. I didn't know that he had written a novel about nuclear destruction and that he was like trying to move towards peace before he got visited by aliens. Coincidence? I think not. There's always a connection between these things and nuclear facilities. So perhaps his interest in that was one of the reasons that he was targeted as a possible point of interest to them. Who knows? But we're going to keep learning together, and I really appreciate you being here. If you enjoy the content, please share it with somebody who you think would find this interesting. You could like this episode and also subscribe to the channel. And if you could comment, that would be so cool. I think the engagement could help the algorithm, and I would love to get some more people into this discussion with us. So I'll see you next time on Shocks Talks.